travels go all around the world, Asia, South America, Australia, New Zealand. Believe it or not, I told this story many times. I went to Thailand early last year. All the way in Bangkok, a gentleman comes to me backstage and says, "So tell me about the Jazz Museum in Harlem." And I said, "You know about it? In Bangkok?" He said, "Yeah, it's like the hottest news in the jazz world." So that is because of you and all of the support that you've given us. And we really, really thank you so much for spreading this word all the way over to Thailand and places as such. We thank you so much for that. I am now going to bring out my good friend and other co-director. He is one of the people that keeps this thing going on a daily basis. And he does a whole lot of hard work and it's paying off. Ladies and gentlemen, please say hello to Mr. Loren Schoenberg.
Thank you all for coming. Tonight is a signal night in the evolution of the National Jazz Museum in Harlem. We're all here for one reason, and that's that reason is going to be happening in just a couple of minutes. But it's my great pleasure to introduce our last introductory speaker, someone without whom not only would the National Jazz Museum in Harlem not be thriving, but arts in Harlem in general would not have nearly as much of the chance to thrive in the way that they have been without the stewardship and the genius of this following man who's head of the Harlem Arts Alliance and someone for whom Harlem and the arts are absolutely inseparable. Join me in welcoming Vosa Rivers.
Let me just say that Harlem is enjoying a renaissance, and our artists, our visual artists, performing artists, our institutions are at the forefront of this renaissance right now, and we are very, very happy that all of you are participating this evening in this wonderful festival. But as Arthur said, it is really Frankie Manning's night. But what's special about Frankie is that he was a part of what we consider the first Renaissance with what he was creating on the stages of the Savoy and at the clubs around this city. So for me, it's real special that we are going to have a dialogue with a living legend, Frankie Manning. So thank all of you for coming.
Frankie Manning and his co-author of his auto/biography, Cynthia Millman. Ladies and gentlemen.
Loren Schoenberg, this is his show, but I'm taking over right now. Hey! I was down in Mobile, Alabama last week, and the governor of Mobile, Alabama, he proclaimed a day for me, which was the next day. Last week, Thursday, was my day, and that day was given to me by the governor of Alabama. And since he proclaimed that it was my day, I gave everybody who was working the day off. And the day that was given to me, President Bush showed up. He was looking for a day off too.
And I'd like to give him a day off, but that was another thing. But no, Frankie, tell me how you really feel.
I feel like I'm floating now.
All right. For those,
this is the first time I've seen so many of my family right here in one place at one time.
I'd like to start with the basic question that every interviewer must ask: where and when were you born?
Oh, that's simple. He did ask the question, and I was born, in case y'all didn't know that. And it was the year 1914, May 26, 1914. And for some of you youngsters, that was last century, if you don't know.
Where, Frankie?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
But don't ask me anything about it because I left there when I was very young,
Okay.
and I'm glad about that.
Okay. Frankie, I'd like to start by asking you about your family and about your parents and about what you can tell us about your family, and how did they wind up in Florida?
Well, it just so happened that my grandfather and my grandmother got together, and it just happened to be in Florida.
I can see where this is going now.
Well, actually, my mother was born in West Palm Beach, Florida, and my father was born in Aiken, South Carolina. And he went to, he came from Aiken, South Carolina to Florida, and that's where he met my mother.
I see. Could you tell us their names, please?
Well, my mother's name was Lucille. My father's name was Jerry, or Jerry. Jerry as in Jerry.
Right. And if you wanted to give us a sketch for those of, I guess for all of us here who never met your folks, how would you give us a picture of them, a picture of their personality?
Well, my grandmother and my mother and my father were they weren't very strict, but they were very fair. And I know that they loved me, you know. But I just want to tell you, boy, my grandmama, she was something else, boy. Well, I think she kind of molded me because if I did something wrong, she said, Frankie, go out there in the yard and get a switch. And when she said switch, she didn't mean one of these little teeny things. She meant one of them things like that. And I would cry all the way out to the yard, getting this switch, cry all the way back. And I'll come back and I'll give it to my grandma. And then she would say, well, okay, lay across my lap. And I have to lay across her lap, and she'd be hitting me and spanking me, you know. And I'll be crying and carrying on. And every time I say, well, Grandma, I ain't gonna do it anymore. I learned how not to say that, because if I say, Grandma, I ain't gonna do it anymore, and she said, well, I know you ain't gonna do it anymore. So I think I kind of got the rhythm from that, because she was And then, but as I said, I knew she loved me, but if I did something wrong, I knew that I was going to be punished, and that was my punishment. So after she finished whipping me, I would be crying, you know, crying and carrying on, and then I'd go and lay my head in her lap, and then she would pet me, and she said, see, when you do something wrong, you're going to get punished for doing it. And then she'd go and bake me a sweet potato pie. Sometimes I thought about it. I say, I think I get a whipping, so I get a sweet potato pie. But I got to throw that thought aside, you know. But as I said, my parents were very loving, but my mother was the dancer in the family. And I always wanted to please my family. I wanted to please my mother. So if I did something wrong, it was always, gee, don't tell my mother. You know, I remember one incident that happened to me where if y'all get the book, you'll read about this.
Right.
Well, I scraped my leg, and I had to go to Harlem Hospital. And the only thing in my mind was, really, my mother's going to find out that I did something wrong. I got this about. That was my thoughts. It's always that my mother. I want to please my mother, and that's the way I kind of grew up. And you know, my father, he didn't whip me much, but when he whipped me, oh man. And my mother happened to be the dancer in the family.
Right.
My father, he couldn't dance, boy. I used to ask my father, I say, hey, Dad, how come you don't dance? He said, well, son, I got 2 left feet. You know, that old cliche, you know, 2 left feet, you know. But, you know, I just went along with it until one day I opened a closet and all his shoes were left-footed.
Okay. Frankie, you mentioned that your mother was a dancer. What kind of dancing did she do, and how would you tell us about
Well,
it?
at that period of time, my mother, she could do most all the dancing that was around because I would go to these parties. I would go to parties with her, and then I'd see her up there dancing, and she'd be getting down, Jim, you know, pulling her skirt up to her knees, you know, and doing the Charleston and the black bottom and the mess around. And she was boogieing, Jim. I'm telling you, she was getting down. And then I go to a ballroom where her club, social club, would give a dance. And they have this social dance where they're doing waltzes, foxtrots, and tango and stuff like that. And she be up there all elegant, you know, dancing. And I look at her, I say, oh, that ain't my mama. Because I'm used to seeing my mama get all down, man, and dressed in and then she's up here doing this thing like that, man. Oh, man.
Right.
I'd rather see her get down, because she could really get down, Jim, I'm telling you. You talk about blues night, y'all don't know what that is. Not until you go to one of these house rent parties. That's when they have blues night, Jim.
Tell us about a blues night.
Oh, man. Oh, come on. Well, I went to this house rent party with my mother, and they started playing this, real slow, gutsy, low-down blues, you know. And them sisters and brothers, they got up on the floor, and they was dancing. I mean, if you want to call it dancing. But, what we used to call it back, they call it blues now. What we used to call it, what it was, we call it grinding. Because that's what they was doing, man. They was up there, wasn't nothing moving but the middle part of their body. And I was sitting on the side, watching all this action go on. Then this lady, she come over to me, she's like, Frankie, come on, let's dance. And I said, oh, I don't want to dance. She said, oh, come on. I said, oh, no, I can't do that dance. She said, oh, come on, I'll show you. She grabbed me and pulled me to her, and she wrapped her arms around me, man, and she was holding me close, and she was hardly moving. That's when I know I became a man. I was trying to back away from this woman. The farther I tried to back away, the tighter she would hold me. When that was over, I said, thank you, and walked on out.
That's a hard question to follow. But anyway, okay, so, all right. All right, so now, again, I want to mention that we have here on the panel with us up here, Cynthia Millman, who did... who did the world a tremendous favor, because those of us that have been blessed to know Frankie and to be around him, may have heard the stories or may have known it, but now it's captured in posterity in a really wonderful new book. And one of the things in the book that I learned, which was the precise nature of your innovations, which had to do with the way that you moved the top part of your body when you danced, as opposed to the way that people moved it before. And I'd just like to say that I've invited Cynthia to please jump in at any moment here. Well, thanks, but please, but seriously, but please jump in. How did it happen? Okay, so you have this like breakthrough, you see your mom dancing, you go to parties, you start to dance. What was the most significant thing that happened between that and you at the Savoy Ballroom and with the white Lindy Hoppers and with your innovations? What was the middle thing? Was it Shorty Snowden? What was the middle thing that took you there?
Yeah, well, Shorty Snowden was my idol, and was another dancer named Leroy Stretch Jones. those two guys were the best dancers in the Savoy. They had these contests at the Savoy Ballroom every Saturday night, and Shorty Snowden said if they had 4 contests, Shorty Snowden would win 3, and Leroy would win 1. But nobody else could get past these 2 guys. But everybody was entering the contest because they said, well, we might catch Shorty Snowden on an off night. And that would be the night that Leroy Stretch Jones would win. So, but the way that they danced, those guys danced, was like upright, like the European style of dancing. They were dancing
which
like
would be?
upright, but their feet was, doing a lot of footwork and stuff, And I would catch all that footwork that they were doing, but I said they danced like upright up here, and I could do everything that Shorty and Leroy could do. So after a while, I'd be dancing in the Savoy, and somebody would say, "Hey, Frankie, you look just like Shorty Snowden." I said, "Yeah, man, I look like Shorty Snowden." And I would be dancing. But that made me feel good. I said, "Well, if I look like Shorty, I must be dancing pretty good." And then next time I'd be dancing, somebody, "Hey, you look like Stretch Jones." Wow. But I was still up here, But I didn't feel too comfortable dancing up there because I think I remember that my mother told me when I was a little younger that I was too stiff to dance, So I think that was like in the back of my mind. So when I started dancing, doing the footwork that those guys were doing, I just started dropping lower and lower and lower. And then after a while, man, I was stretching out. Right. I was almost like horizontal to the floor, man. I would kick my legs way out there like that. I had this long line. And then the people started, my gang started to say, "Hey, Frankie, you look like you're flying." I said, "Oh, wow." We didn't have any mirrors in those days to look at ourselves dance. So you had to go by what other people told you. So when they said, "Well, Frankie, you look like you're flying," I said, "Oh, wow, that's the way I want to look. I want to look like I'm flying." And that's just the way I just went from up here to like that. So most of the youngsters around my age, they started getting down there too, man. They say, "Yeah, I want to look like I'm flying too, man."
Right. So I have a question. In the days before tape recorders and all the high-tech stuff, you mentioned, not even having mirrors to look at. How did you and where did you perfect your craft? Did you practice with records? Did you practice with friends? Or was it all just at night at the Savoy Ballroom? How did you do it?
Well, records was one thing that we practiced too. What we would do, like we would get some friends together, and like on Friday nights, we started having parties, not house rent parties, but we would just have parties, So and our friends would come over to our house. Next Friday night, you'll have a party. We go over to your house and things like that. So then we would dance. We would use recordings and records, and we would dance. Well, as you say, we didn't have any CDs and videos and things like that. So we would dance at home, and then while we were home, sometimes we would make up some steps, Then we would go to the Savoy, and we get in the corner, and we would dance and try out the steps that we made up at home. Right. And sometimes they just didn't work, and sometimes they did work. And other people would come around and watch us dance and watch the steps that we were doing, and they would copy those steps. People would come and watch us and copy the steps that we were doing, and what we were doing, we would leave the corner that we were in and go to the corner, the north end of the Savoy Ballroom, and we would watch guys like, I just want to tell you, boy, the nicknames that these guys had, boy. They had like Blackjack, and they had Shoebrush, they had the Sheik, they had Speedy, they had Rabbit, they had Shorty Snowden, Stretch Jones, and they had some cat named Musclehead. I don't know where that comes from. But these were the guys that were dancing. And what we would do, we would go and watch these guys dance, and they were doing the step, watch them doing the step, and they say, "Wow, I got that." And then I go back and show it to my friends, I say, "Hey, man, they're doing this step over there, something like that."
Right.
Something like that. And then I would teach it to them, Then somebody else would say, "Okay, I'm going over to see if I can steal something." And if you ever heard the thing that say, you don't steal steps, that's a lie. I was the biggest thief in the Savoy Ballroom. At that time, if you do a step once, goodbye. I got it and gone, man. Now, it takes me about 3 looks to get it. But then, you know, like I said, we would take a step, and I'd come back, I'd teach it to my friend. He would teach it to somebody else, and he'd teach it to somebody else. After a while, it comes back to that same guy, and that guy say, hey, man, that's a great step. Where'd you get it from? I say, I got it from you.
Right.
But by that time, the step has a variation to it. See?
Yeah.
So that was our way of learning, because we didn't have any studios to go to learn how to dance. We didn't have any teachers like they have nowadays, instructors and all that, to show us how to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, all that kind of stuff like that. We just had the music of somebody like maybe Chick Webb, who was playing Let's Get Together, or Stomping at the Savoy, Big John Special, you know all of those songs.
Right.
But that music was just swinging, and it just made you want to dance. I didn't have any idea that I wanted to, you know, excel. It's just that it just came about that way. You know, I didn't get out there and say, well, gee, I'm gonna be better than this guy, except when I go in the circle. There's somebody out there in the circle and he's doing something. I say, he ain't doing nothing. Wait till you see this. But and when we go in contests, but otherwise, it wasn't like, man, I'm going to be the greatest dancer in the world. I didn't think like that. I just thought music, dancing, love it, girls, yeah.
Oh, man. You know, many of the things that you're mentioning and the way that you talk about it is so fascinating for me as a musician, because you could just transpose everything you're talking about with the way that dancers do to the way that musicians used to trade licks and try and be original and have jam sessions and stuff. And you already dropped one name, which of course has us musicians with our tongues down to here, which is Chick Webb.
Yeah.
And, you know, all we know who weren't there, we know the records, and we know maybe some little film clip from some movie, but we weren't there when it was happening. Wow. And I'm wondering if you could share with us, just paint a picture. What was the Savoy Ballroom like on a Saturday night with Chick Webb's band? What was the vibration? Why did people go there? What was happening?
Yeah, it wasn't so hot.
Okay.
In the wintertime. But the Savoy Ballroom, in case some of you don't know, the Savoy Ballroom was 1 block long, block wide, 2 bands, not 1, 2 bands dance. They had 2 bands playing, I mean live music. And each one of these bands was a swinging band. I mean, people say, well, did they play any other kind of music? Yes, they did. But I usually like to tell people, they play waltzes, foxtrots, tangos, and all that. But you go to Savoy, the musicians, I mean the bands, the way they played it, they were swinging it. So if we get out there doing a tango, we swung a tango. Do a waltz, we swung a waltz. And that's because that was the way that the musicians were playing it, you know?
Right,
because
right.
they were so used to playing swing music, but when they come to waltz, man, the waltz was kind of swinging too, you know? But yeah, I just tell you one occasion, like the Battle of the Bands with Benny Goodman and Chick Webb.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, talking about a night, Jesus. But I always say that night, the dancers won, not the bands.
Oh.
The dancers won because they had Chick Webb, a great band, and they had Benny Goodman, a great band. And both of these bands are swinging that night. But in case anybody want to ask me, I'll tell you now so you won't have to later. Who won? My estimation, Chick Webb won that night, folks. And the reason why I say that is because I was standing right by the bandstand when Chick Webb was playing. Benny Goodman had just got through playing. Gene Cooper was sitting on a piano watching and listening to Chick Webb's band. And he was just shaking his head like this. Said, man, that cat was kicking my behind. But, and sometimes you can tell which band is the best by listening to, say, like Chick Webb play Don't Be That Way, Benny Goodman play Don't Be That Way, and they both have the same arrangement. And you listen to Chick play it, and then you listen to Benny Goodman play it, then you compare the two. And I mean, Chick Webb was swinging Don't Be That Way.
Right.
Man. Chick Webb was swinging, yeah.
Well, I mean, you know,
And I just want to tell you, they had about 5,000 people in the Savoy Ballroom dancing to that music. So that's why I said the dancers were the winners. They had about 5,000 people outside trying to get in.
sounds like tonight. You know, but I have a question, Frankie. Now, with all those people dancing, why didn't the floor at the Savoy Ballroom just break? With all those people going up and down. I mean,
Oh, man, come on. Savoy Ballroom was the Savoy Ballroom. We didn't have no breakage up there, man.
the floor kind of bent a little, didn't it?
Well, the floor, you know, was used to listening to bands, so the floor was bouncing too, you know.
Right. How did
Let me tell you this one thing.
Want some water, Frankie?
Because I just want the folks to know that that night with Benny Goodman and Chick Webb, I kind of made a little bit of money that night. You know, because I was a regular at the Savoy, so I knew all the ins and outs. And me and some of my friends got together, you know, so we cooked up this scheme. You know, I would go out and stand by the line, and I'd see the people on the line trying to get in, and I'd say, hey, man, you want to go in the Savoy? He said, yeah, but I can't get in. They're not letting anybody in there. So I'd say, you got $1? So he said, yeah. I said, well, come on with me. I take him around the corner. I rap on the door. A friend inside, he opens the door, let the guy in. He walks upstairs, knock on the door, open it, and the guy walks into the ballroom. He said, okay, mingle, boy. I made myself about $15 that night.
Frankie, what was how did you become a professional dancer, getting paid to dance and touring the world and going to all over the world? Back in the 1930s, you were touring already.
That was an accident. Really. I mean, because I never thought I was going to be a professional. I always thought I was going to be a furrier. I thought I was going to make beautiful furs for beautiful ladies, you know. And I see them strutting down the street, I'd say, oh, I made that. But I was going to Savoy like every night. I was in the Harvest Moon Ball, and I took second prize in that. Leon James and Edith Matthews took first prize. And what happened was that we had did a show called the Cotton Club Review that appeared at the Alhambra Theater. And on that show, we got a big reception at the first show. But then after the show, the first show, they told us we was out of the show. So, but they promised us a date later, which we got a date later. But from that, the next year, Cotton Club opened downtown on Broadway. And we were picked to go into the Cotton Club. And that particular performance that we did at the Alhambra might been why we went into to that. But when I first went into the Cotton Club downtown, that's when I thought I would be a professional. I said, wow, Cotton Club? Man, you know, that's the epitome. I mean, you got to be the best musician, the best singer, the best dancer, best comedian. You got to be the best of everything. So when they said, well, you're going into the Cotton Club, I say, wow, maybe I'm a pretty good dancer. Going to the Cotton Club. Wow.
When you said we went in, who's the we? Who was the group?
Well, we had Billy Williams and Mildred Cruz, Jerome Williams and Lucille Middleton, Naomi Waller, and myself. 6 of us. And I always called Naomi. That was my first professional partner. And there was a young lady that I danced with. Her name was Helen Douglas at the time. And I think she's sitting right over there.
Oh! Stand up, please.
Yeah, that was my last professional dance partner.
Okay.
Boy, and she could dance, man. Wow. She taught me a lot.
I think this is the perfect time. We are going to show you a clip from those days.
Oh, really?
Can you introduce us?
Oh,
Yeah, tell us.
I didn't know that.
Tell us about that. Well, why don't we watch it and talk about it after?
Okay.
Okay, so can you tell them which one we're going to see?
We're going to be seeing the House of Hoppen video.
Hell's a
This is
poppin'.
Frankie's masterpiece from 1941.
And
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm going out here. I want to see that
Yeah.
myself.
Frankie, want some water?
Oh, thanks.
You got it?
Yeah.
Keep it.
This is C.P. Johnson on the drums.
Next
Slim Gaylord.
Oh man, don't stop. Now we jumping. Everything is all. This thing might turn into something. I'm just thinking, you're something down.
This is Mickey and Downs. Mickey is a girl, Downs is a fella. This is Billy Ricker and Norma Miller. This is Al Mims and Willamette Ricker. Y'all see that scene where I do the handspring over the girl, she kicks me? Well, I just want to tell you something. This was done in 1941, right? So when Ann and I was rehearsing to do this particular step, she was very tentative, you know. She was like, I said, come on, Ann, this is a movie, honey. You got to really kick me because you want people to realize that this is for real. So she said, but Frankie, I heard you. I said, but it's only going to be for one take. This was 1941. They don't have cameras like they do now. You know, guy can walk around. They would set up a camera here. We would have to go through the routine. She'd kick me. Set up a camera over there. Go through the routine. She would kick me. Wherever they set up the camera, we had to go through the routine. I didn't know I was going to have to get kicked 10 times a day. I didn't tell you, and this is the truth. After this movie, I wasn't able to sit down for a month. I used to go to a restaurant, you know, and I'd get ready to sit down. I'd say, oh no, I better not do that. You know, even now, when I watch this movie, and I know this is coming, you know, when she's getting ready to kick me, I do this.
How is a, you know, how is a routine like that, which is like some of the greatest athleticism and art I've ever seen, the coordination is amazing. How does a routine like that happen?
Well, you know, we had some of those kids were the greatest dancers, or some of Whitey's best dancers. And we all, each and every one of us knew how to do air steps. It's not like you know, now when people are learning air step, they learn them in parts, you know, like, okay, you want to go down there. Okay, do this again, go down there. Or we said, well, look, what I want you to do is do the handspring down there, come up, do a flip, and come down my back. And they say, okay, flip, boom, bah. If you miss, try it again. So we just went to do the step. And as I said, each and every one of those kids knew how to do these air steps. But what we tried to do is that, if you notice that each and every one of them had a little different style of dancing, and each and every one of them did something different from the next team. So what I tried to do was let those ones who I thought the steps fit, let them do what they do best. You know, so and that one way with Norma and Billy, that's their stuff, boy.
Right.
But he's shaking shaking up pretty good, you know. But it was fun doing that routine because and we worked very, very hard on it. We practiced for about 3 or 4 hours every single day to do that before we went out to Hollywood.
We should mention in that scene the cornet player at the beginning was the famous Rex Stewart, who had been in Fletcher Henderson's band and Duke Ellington's band and with so many great orchestras. And it leads me to the next question, which is, with all the great bands and musicians that you heard and danced to, could you single out a handful that were the most fun to work with, and that there was some kind of give and take between the band and the dancers? Did you have favorites?
Oh yeah, well I tell you, I've worked with Jimmy Crawford from Jimmy Lawson's band, and he was rated as the best. What can I call it? Show drummer, because dancers, when Jimmy was playing, he could catch everything that dancers did. But I really like Joe Jones.
Yeah,
because this cat can swing he can swing, man. And Joe Jones, I mean, to me, and you might know this better than me, but I don't remember drummers playing like 4/4 time until I heard Joe Jones playing 4/4 time, you know, on the simmer. They would play 2/4 time,
right?
You know? And when Joe Jones started, doing, boy, that make you want to.
Right.
And
absolutely.
So he was one of my favorite drummers.
Right.
I can go back like Chewberry. I don't know if people probably don't know. Chewberry was a great saxophone player. He died very young. And then Ben Webster. That was my man, boy. Ben Webster was working with Cab Calloway's band when we went on the road with them, you know. Well, Cab had a wonderful band. He had a great band. Everybody in his band could play. But Cab was the feature. So you heard, I mean, every recording you hear is Cab Calloway singing. But Cab Calloway's band could really swing. Right. And when we went on the road with it and we gave them our music, boy, those cats were smiling from ear to ear because they had an opportunity to improvise while they were playing for us, you know?
Right.
And each one of them, each guy that took a solo could play 2 choruses, so, you know, he get a little chance to stretch out a little bit, you know? And Ben Webster, boy, you know, I shouldn't say this, but when we were dancing and I was making up this routine, I made up the routine so I could dance when Ben Webster was playing.
That's beautiful, man.
Because this cat got behind me, boy, and he would blow. You know that deep tone that Ben had? He would blow. He'd go, and he'd make me want to. He said, "Go, Frankie." I say, "Go, Frog." Oh, we call him Frog Eyes. We used to call him Frog Eyes, you know.
Right.
So,
Frog Eyes.
So and naturally, Pops Louie was, you know, he was one of my favorites. You know, like I've had the opportunity just to. We worked with Louis Armstrong in the show that was on Broadway called "Swingin' the Dream," that had you know, Benny Goodman, Lionel Hampton, Gene Krupa,
Charlie Christian.
All them guys in the band. And Louis Armstrong was in the show. And sometimes Louis Armstrong would be like backstage just practicing on his horn, you know. And then all of a sudden somebody would come out, you know, and the guy would stand there, you know, Louis Armstrong practicing, and this guy take out his horn and he start. And then a person like Benny Goodman come over. He has a clarinet in his hand, and he started filling in. And sometimes musicians from other places would come in.
Lord.
I remember one particular time, these guys were back, look, stage like this, the stage was clear, nobody was there. And somebody like Tommy Dorsey was there, Jack Teagarden, and Kate Johnson from
Cab's band.
Cab's band, or Ben Webster, Lester Young, all these guys, because they came down to see, you know, like Pops and some of the other guys. Right. And they just started a jam from nothing, boy. And boy, they stayed there till about 4 o'clock in the morning jamming. And you know who was there till 4 o'clock in the morning jamming? That was me, boy. I was right there in the middle.
Right.
And I was just digging all that music, man. Right. And, you know, I feel sorry that you guys don't have I really do, that you don't have the opportunity to be around musicians and just to listen to them improvise. Play from their own soul, play what they feel like playing. And those jam sessions was what happened with musicians. They, you know, like Tommy Dorsey played at the hotel, and they play the same song over every night, you know. Right. So these guys want to go out someplace where they can play something different. Sure. So, that was the way that all the bands were. You know, they hear about a band rehearsing or something, and like Count Basie was living in a hotel called the Woodside Hotel, 141st Street and 7th Avenue, and they would have rehearsal, you know, downstairs, and musicians from everywhere would come there just to hear Basie rehearsing and join in. And they would start. I remember one night, oh man, Coleman Hawkins, Lester Young, Ben Webster, Vito Mosso, all these guys were at the Woodside, and these cats started jamming, and they started about 1 o'clock, one song, and they finished about 4.
You know, this is so heartwarming to me as a musician, because I kind of lament the fact that the dancers and the musicians aren't tight like they used to be.
Yeah, I know.
And I hope that from what you're saying, that, you know, with all the wonderful swing dancers out there that have come to hear you, that they'll heed your message. You know what I mean? The musicians and the dancers, too frequently, we're kind of, the band's here and the dancers are there, and there's very little of this. But hearing what you're saying really makes me hope that it comes back again.
Well, that was it. You know, the dancers and the musicians was almost like a call and response thing, you know.
Right.
Because we would be in the Savoy and I'd be dancing, you know. I remember when Dizzy Gillespie was in Teddy Hill's band, but we didn't call him Dizzy then. We just called him Crazy. he would be up there, you know, I would be dancing, you know, and I'd be doing a certain step, you know, I'd be shim tam tum ta shikadum ta, and then I hear shim tam ta behind me, you know, and then I'd do the step again, and then I say, oh wow, hey Dizzy, he said, go ahead, keep dancing, man, and I'll be dancing, I'll do something, and he'd catch it, and then he'll play something, and I kind of catch what he was playing, you know. So then we get up there and we start doing this thing back and forth, you know. And it was a wonderful time to come up with because there was such a thing with musicians and dancers. I mean, not just Lindy Hoppers. I mean, tap dancers. They can tell you this. Tap dancers can tell you that, man. The musicians and them were, you know, they were buddies, man.
Right. Yeah. Frankie, could you tell us about your?
No.
I got it. Frankie, don't tell us about your first trip to Europe.
No, I won't. Well, my first trip with you was like 1937, and was with the Cotton Club show, and it was a wonderful time because we had we didn't take the original cast because the original cast would have cost much. Instead of Cab Calloway's band, they had Teddy Hill's band.
Oh, you're on that tour.
And Dizzy was in that band at that time. And let me see. I'm trying to think of. If I'm not mistaken, I think Ben Webster was in the band at that time too.
Thanks, Phil.
Who?
Bob Carroll and
Right, Bob Carroll.
And
that's
Russell
right.
Procope.
Yeah,
And
Russell.
Sam Allen and John Smith
Yeah.
and Bill Beeson
Bill
and
Beeson
Bill
was the
Dillard
drummer,
and Dickie
yeah.
Wells.
Yeah, and Dickie and all that, but Dickie and I was very good friends. We went to Europe and we played, Moulin Rouge and France, and then we went to England and played that. And while we were there, I had the extreme pleasure of doing a command performance for the Queen of England. To show, you know, and what happened was that we did this command performance, and the stage manager came up and he says, okay, the king and queen come up after, congratulate the show, and the fellas are to bow, and the ladies are to curtsy, but you're not to extend your hand unless they extend their hand to you. So the king and queen came up on the stage, and the king came first, naturally, and he walked along and he's bowing, good show, and he walked on by. Then the queen, she came up and she walked together, and she stopped in front of me. And I know this is not a word, but I was so flustigated. I curtsied. I burst it. I was a laughing stock of the show after that. Everybody was going backstage and saying, hey, Frankie, I'm the queen. You gonna curtsy to me? I said, get out of here. But you know what I did? I went out and bought one glove, and I was walking around with this glove, and people said, well, what's that glove for? I said, this is the hand. They shook the hand of the Queen of England, baby. And that was long before Michael Jackson thought of wearing one glove.
Just as long as you took us to Michael Jackson. He's a heck of a dancer.
Yeah, very good dancer.
Yeah. I mean, how do you see the relationship between the kind of dancing that he did and folks like that did, and even the dancing that's going on now, and the dancing that you pioneered back in the 30s and 40s? There seems to be a real strong link.
Well, you know, everything goes around, comes around, you know. And you see Michael Jackson doing the moon dance and all that stuff. I mean, not that he created it. Those things come from the past, and they're just brought down to fit the kind of music that's being played now.
Right. And so, in a sense, maybe some of the dances that they were doing in your day also went back.
Oh, yes,
And came
yes.
out of the turkey trot and the bear hug and all those old dances from the 1910s and 1900s.
Yeah, well, you know, I was in Africa a few years ago, and we were teaching some dance out there, and we were doing some steps, and it was some Africans were sitting on the side who were just a little bit older, and they say, "Oh, we used to call that the so-and-so. What do you call it?" You know, and we were doing an ordinary Charleston. Mm-hmm. We did Charleston like they say, "Oh, we used to do that." And we call it the so-and-so, so it just had a different name.
Right. You know, doing this interview, I feel like one of the most lucky people, and as you know, we could go for, I guess, several hours like this. This is one of the most interesting interviews that we've done. And we have a schedule to keep tonight. And one of the things that we're going to do this evening before we get to a brief question and answer period, which will be followed by a dance lessons upstairs with a live 16-piece big band, which will be followed by a swing dance, is we have here this evening a wonderful group of kids who are probably just about the same age as when you were first going to the Savoy. They're called the Jitterbug Kids. And I think we'd like to fulfill probably the dream of their life and have them come out and do one number for Frankie Manning. Would you like to see that?
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Go this way, please. don't want to put them on the spot, but we're going to ask Frank and Cynthia to come back maybe in September, October. We'll clear a date. follow up. Because this has been the tip of the iceberg, right? Just the absolute tip. Cynthia,
Yeah, I'll tell you things that's not even in the book then.
you'd like to say something, please?
Oh, I was just going to say that I really enjoyed hearing Loren interview Frankie because Frankie has so many stories and so much information and has lived such a rich life that after interviewing him for 13 years, I heard new things tonight that I had never heard.
Can we thank Cynthia for doing that? Questions, and I'd like to make them questions, not comments. If you actually have a question for Mr. Manning, you can make it kind of briefly. Be happy to take it. You are just absolutely raring to go. Please.
I want to hear from Cynthia and Frankie how you collaborated to do the book. How did you work together to make it all happen? She wants to know how we collaborated to do the book. How did we work together?
Well, you tell her how.
I started hearing Frankie's stories in around 1990 when I was with the Big Apple Lindy Hoppers, and we would go out to dinner afterwards. And it was very apparent right from the beginning that he had led this incredibly interesting life and was very, very gifted at talking about it and telling us the stories. So I started doing articles about him, and I did a master's thesis, and I would interview him for these various projects. And then I asked if he would like to do a book, and he said yes. And we started meeting as much as we could, and we would record interviews. And then I start to write it up, and I would always bring it back to Frankie and read it to him, and we just keep working it back and forth until we shaped it into the book. How many hours did you estimate you Well, 13 years. Calculator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question, sir.
Frankie, if you thought the playing field was even, do you think your name will be up there with Fred Astaire as far as the music and the dancing is concerned?
I do.
No, man. My name wouldn't be out there with Fred Astaire. Boy. I just want to tell you something. I was out in Hollywood making a movie, and we, like when we were on the set, all the other actors from around all the other studios, they heard about these crazy Lindy Hoppers, and they would come over and watch us. And Fred Astaire came over one day with a bunch of friends while we were out there dancing, and carrying on. And he was not talking to us, but he turned to his friend and he said, "No, I'd like to dance like them." And we stopped dancing because everybody wanted to dance like Fred Astaire. Are you kidding? All that money he was making? We wanted to dance like Fred Astaire. But then later on, I saw a movie that Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers did, and he was trying to do the Lindy Hop. And I say, "Okay, Fred, I know what you mean." He's a good dancer, but he ain't no Lindy Hopper, man.
Next question, sir. Miss. About say it again? Kitchen Mechanics Night.
Kitchen Mechanics Night. Did you?
Thursday night.
Yes, was Thursday night. Did you ever go up at those nights? Yeah. You did? But you went up anyway, huh?
It was the domestic nights off?
Yeah, it was the night that the Mexican, a lot of them worked out on Long Island, and they would come up to the Savoy that particular night, and they would get a special price to come in. And naturally that night, boy, it was just filled with men, boy. Because these domestics had been working all week long, and they had one night off to do anything that they wanted to do.
There's a record by Count Basie's band with Helen Humes called Thursday.
And it's about that. It's about the
Yeah.
perspective of a woman whose night off is Thursday. You may want to check that out. Next question, sir.
I've known this man for a long time. How you doing, Frankie?
Your question.
Did you consider showing the 2-minute video for dancers around the world celebrating Frankie's 80th birthday party?
His question is, did we consider tonight showing the video that Stuart Mapp and Kathy Lachmari made in honor
My
of her
birthday.
80th birthday? We only had 1 or 2 videos. So we show that a lot when we do lectures. We think it's an absolutely wonderful film. But because we could only show 1 film, we chose to show it as a top.
Sorry about that, man.
One more question. Yes, sir.
Frankie, before you got that sweet potato pie, what had you done that asked you want to get you to get that switch?
I don't remember, man. I don't remember. You know, I was a youngster. I was a kid, and you know how kids are. I mean, they laugh at, they do anything, but at the time that they do it, they don't always know that it's wrong. You know, it's just your parents tell you that it's wrong. You know, a lot of times parents are wrong. You know. But it was okay. I got the sweet potato pie. So
Can I make a comment? In the world, every country has an ethnic dance, but the United States didn't have any till swing came along. So we give credit to Frankie for that, in bringing the ethnic dance, which represents America.
Amen.
Thanks, man.